Do you know what happened in 1951? Well, a lot of things happened, yes. You know what? I'll meet you in the middle. I'll just tell you the answer. What happened in 1951 was that there was a song that was created called It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas. Actually, it was originally called It's Beginning to Look Like Christmas. It then became a lot later on. But this song was first recorded in 1951. So what? 73 years ago? It was beginning to look a lot like Christmas in September. But now, what? We're about a week out from Christmas, probably at the time you're listening to this, and I have to hard disagree. It doesn't look like Christmas at all. In fact, a conversation I've been having with a few folks this past week is it beginning to look a lot like Christmas? But I didn't even go that deep to begin with. The question I've been asking a lot of people this past week, I've asked maybe a handful. To me, that's a lot, okay? I don't know how social you're being, but to me, 5 is a stretch. That's 1 for every weekday. And then what? Weekends are for resting, so what more do you want from me? But I asked a handful of people this past week, I was like, do you feel like it's the winter time? And with that question, it was about 50-50, right? How can you have 50-50 with 5 people? Let's just say it's 6. There, are you happy now? 3 and 3. 3 people said, yes, it does feel like it's winter. This is about what it is. But then the other 3 were like, no, actually, it doesn't feel like winter at all. But despite their answer to that question, when I asked the follow-up of, does it feel like Christmas is in 2 weeks from now? All of them, all 100%, 5 or 6 of them, said no. No, it doesn't feel like Christmas. That's shocking, actually. I can rationalize, right? Don't know why I said it like that. I can rationalize that it's winter time, but the Christmas thing, that's what's pulling me away. And I agree. The reason I was asking them was to kind of get a vibe check with the world, right? Because to me, it doesn't feel like Christmas. The very fact that Christmas is in a week and a half from today blows my mind. At the time I'm recording this, I think Christmas is 9 or 10 days away. What do you mean? And I tried to think about it. I'm like, why is this the case? What changed? I remember very distinctly when I was a kid, it felt like Christmas. Now there were normal things, right, that were in place as a kid that made you make it feel like Christmas. Like things would happen at school. Decorations would change, all the themes in the classrooms. The teacher would put up candy canes, snowflakes, all that. Maybe you would have a movie day, maybe a potluck, right, before you all leave on winter break. It was even signified and marked by its very own break. And so I was like, oh, there's that. And plus, if you were ever driven anywhere, the thing that would be on the radio is Christmas music. And there would be all this talk, right? Oh, what did you get? What did you get? What are you guys doing for winter break, right? There was this big celebration around the thing. And I wonder, is that not how it is now? And that's part of it. I think it's true. I don't think there's anything that really marks winter break. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, the difference between what is being an adult and what is being a student, because I think there is a stark difference. But I wonder, is that part of the contribution of the lack of festivities? And I think that is it. But there's something else. It can't be all that, right? Like, I feel like some kids, if you talk to them even, they would probably be like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it. Because something's changed. I don't know if it's what's in the air or something like that, but it's not living up to what it used to be. I have not smelled gingerbread once this year, this season, we'll call it. And I feel like that's kind of fucking messed up. And there's so many other things. I think it's even like the things you see online. I feel like a lot of advertisements in the past, right? There was a Sprite cranberry ad for the NBA, LeBron, want a Sprite cranberry? And now, there's these half-baked shitty parodies of what they used to be. Anthony Edwards, yes, he's a great charismatic face of a brand, whether that be Adidas or Sprite, but it doesn't hit the same. Everything is just a watered-down, distilled, filtered parody of what it used to be. It's merely a weak facsimile and something that leaves you wishing you wanted more. What, does this guy work for fucking Rotten Tomatoes? Why'd he say it like that? But speaking of Rotten Tomatoes, I watched a movie called Red One, right? I watched it today with Chris Evans and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And that movie, that's a Christmas movie. I tried to get myself in the spirit today by watching a Christmas movie. And I liked it. It was fun. But even that, right? Now the internet ruins these movies. Going into this, I knew that a lot of people were talking shit about this movie. Some people saying stuff like, oh, the CGI is not great. Yeah, it's a movie about kidnapping Santa Claus. There's a talking bodyguard polar bear. What the fuck did you expect? That always blows me away when people are very critical of CGI, because I'm like, don't you have taxes to pay or something? Why are you worried about how realistic some wizard effects are when you have taxes? You got to get your priorities straight. But then I realize the other side of the argument, right? The reason people get so worked up about things like CGI is because that's supposed to be their escape. You have such a shitty day-to-day life that you're like, oh, I'm going to fully immerse myself in this movie and it's going to be very fun because it's going to look very realistic. And then if you see, right, they whip out that wand and the spell that's cast from it gets shot out of like the left side of themselves, you'll be like, what the fuck is that? My immersion. What has happened? And so then you get frustrated at that. You're like, this was supposed to be the one thing that kept me sane, that kept me looking forward to waking up this morning. And even this is fucked. It kind of lets you down, right? I have a friend, they play Pokemon Go. And they have this daily walking route they always go on. They've been going at it basically since the game came out, which is now, oh my goodness, like 8.5 years ago. And they told me that there's this gym that they always hit. You know, they always fight the Pokemon there and take it out. They do it once a day, and that's it. And they leave it alone. It's not too much to ask for, right? Get your Pokemon in there and get your coins for the day. But recently, they told me that every time they put their Pokemon in a gym, that one and maybe one that's kind of nearby, within 15 minutes, it gets kicked out by the same motherfucker. New kid in the block or something, I don't know. Maybe their parents just gave a kid their first phone, and then they downloaded Pokemon Go because they're like, no, I don't have to play this on the family iPad. And so they made it their life's mission to always kick out this friend of mine. And they were telling me how much this pisses them off because they're like, Pokemon was my one escape. And now I don't even have that because of probably some snot-nosed fuckface that keeps kicking me out. And you can tell, right? If you know about Pokemon Go, this motherfucker, he's already gold at these gyms. He's doing this not for the heart of the game, but because he's an asshole. And so I get it. I get why people are so worked up about CGI. Because it kind of takes you out of it. And then you're like, this was a waste. I understand that. But I don't understand if you're watching a movie where The Rock is the big head elf that's the bodyguard for Santa. I don't get why you are getting the movie on realism. You entered this contract. You're watching a movie. You're watching a movie where some Marvel, beautiful brunette leading male actor is playing some begrudging, oh, I don't like Christmas character, right? There's even that movie Spirited with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds. Again, Ryan Reynolds leading Marvel brunette male actor hunk, right? You got Chris Evans, Ryan Reynolds, and they're playing these characters where they're like, I don't like Christmas because my childhood was fucked or something. And so now no one else can like Christmas. I'm the sexy modern day Grinch. They're like the Grinch if they went to, if they groomed themselves, essentially. And then there's always that point in the movie where you can see it. The spark comes to their eye and they're like, oh my God, I do love Christmas. And you're like, this is why I watch. Yes. But even in that movie, Will Ferrell is a time-traveling, elf, right? What are we doing? Why are you focusing on realism? And that's probably another thing that's contributed to it, right? Online, we're so critical of these things that we've been given to enjoy during the time of holidays that we're like, this, instead of just being enjoyable, we're like, this is stupid and I don't appreciate it. But why? Even when I watched the movie, I enjoyed it, but the whole time I kept thinking, that's not realistic. And I was like, I shouldn't have these thoughts. I should just be an idiot watching a Christmas movie. Why do I have critical thinking skills right now? It's unfair. There's a scene, right? It's a recurring thing. It's in the trailer, so this isn't a spoiler. But Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he has this, band on his wrist, a wristband, some might call it. And it has the ability to change the size of things. So he always takes a Hot Wheels car, puts it on the ground, and then, zaps it, and it becomes a life-size car. And every time that happened, right? It's a little punchline, it's a little fun joke. Every time it happened, I kept thinking to myself, does no one see him do that? And I had that thought and I quickly moved past it, right? I suspended my understanding of reality, but I still had that thought of like, wait, does no one see that? Isn't that a big question mark, right? And I shouldn't have these thoughts. I should just be able to be dumb and enjoy things. And that, I think, is what's taking away from the holiday season. Too much critical thought. That's right. The world is thinking too much today. Everyone's actually too smart nowadays. That's the problem. But I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a combination of being an adult, things, being commented on online, and maybe just an overall lack of Christmas festivities. Things move too fast. I think that's another thing, right? Like when I was younger, a trend would become a trend for a month before that trend made its way onto Ellen, where it was quickly and swiftly, put out of its misery, we'll say. Taken out back. Like the sick horse it is. Okay. But now, things happen so quick. Something that happened at 4 p.m. yesterday is not interesting by 10 a.m. tomorrow. So what the fuck is there to look forward to, right? What is there to be excited about? And I think these holiday seasons have been so condensed that the things that we used to be excited about come and go, and they have no staying power. And I think that maybe that's contributed to it. Or that's just me being an adult now. And all the Christmas miracle, right? All the Christmas fun, pizzazz is gone. But which one is better, right? Being a dumbass kid or an adult? I think there's pros and cons with both, right? But the thing I've really taken to comparing when I'm talking about the two is the amount of work you have to do, right? The stress. What's the difference in stress when you're a student versus an adult? I feel like with a student, right? It's this mad dash. It's this concentrated, I was on the quarter system, 10 weeks of just the most stress you've ever had in your life. But then at the end of the 10 weeks, you take that final and you drop it all. It's all this, build up to an inflection point, and then it's a sweet, sweet release. The thing about being an adult is it never ends. And I think that's what's so sickening about it, is the perpetual nature of it. In that this is it, but it's not. I don't want you to think like that, right? I know that's dangerous territory, a slippery slope to be like this and this is it. There's much to look forward to, but it's harder to deal with, I think, in the long term. Like I said, when you're a student, it's like you're carrying 10 teapots for 10 weeks, and then at the 11th week, you get to just drop them and not care about them ever again. And when you're an adult, you're only holding 2 teapots. The problem is, you've been told to hold on to these teapots, for as long as you can. Just hold on to those forever, we'll tell you. And you're like, when is it going to be? They're like, we don't know. But just, can you hold on to them forever? The only time you'll be able to, drop these teapots is if something happens. Wait, what's going to happen? We're not going to tell you that either. Is it good or bad? Depends. Someone might pass away, and then you might have to take some time off work. But don't worry, they'll let you do it. It's called bereavement. It's worked in. They've created a system for that. So you won't lose any of your vacation days. Don't worry. Okay. But it can be good. Yeah, you could win the lottery. But even that comes with bad things, right? Because then you won't have any real friends if they find out. So don't tell them, okay? And that's the problem. With being an adult, it never really stops. And that's why I think actually it's probably harder. When I first graduated college and I became an adult, I'm like, this is way fucking better. Because there was only upside. But as time goes on, I still like it. But it's gotten more and more difficult to deal with. Because I'm like, when will it ever end? And that's kind of the shitty part is, oh, no, it doesn't. Again, I don't want to scare anyone by saying that, but it's forever. This is my problem. there's never time to celebrate, right? Like when you're working on something at work, you could be maybe halfway done with it, 6/8 done with it, right? 7/8 done with it, almost nearing the end. And then your manager is going to say, oh, nice, you're almost finished with that. Here, can you also start on this? Engineers, right? They're so smart. They discovered this thing called parallel processing. It makes no sense, right? To work on a task, fully complete it, and then start the next one. Things won't get done quick enough. Your computers would be dog shit. So there was something called parallel processing, right? It's probably used in other ways, but I'll use the computer example to explain it to you. They figured, well, before one workload is finished, why can't we just start another one? Why can't there be multiple workloads happening at the same time? There should be overlap. It's more efficient. We just need the processing power to be able to take care of that. But once we do, that's probably the best thing to do. And we're like, oh my God, yes. Unfortunately, that's bled its way into real life. And at work, you have to do things over and over again. It never stops. You never complete something and say, okay, that was that. Now what's the next thing? So it never feels like it's over. And I get it, right? You're working for a company. They have to operate like this. But I don't get how they do at a human level. Because when do we ever feel accomplished? I haven't done it in a while, but every time I would start a new job, I'm talking about internships here, of course. I've only had one full-time job in my life. But every internship, I'd always finish it. I'd do the end of job exit interview. And I would always ask my managers, I would say, I have a question for you. How do you learn to appreciate things or like feel any sense of accomplishment? Because it feels like things are always go, go, go onto the next thing. You don't have time to appreciate it. And every single answer I got from managers sucked ass. I had one manager say, oh, no, you don't appreciate things. That's the thing. You have to be moving on to the next thing. It's not good to stop and appreciate things. And like I said, I didn't have an answer back then, but I knew enough to know, well, that's the wrong answer. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Never appreciate things, never feel accomplishment. How are you still walking around? How have you not just checked out, if you know what I mean? Because that's a crazy mentality. This man that told me this was in his 40s. I'm like, you've been living like this for this long? Couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. There's been some good answers though, right? Some okay answers. Like this one manager was like, oh, I practice this with my daughters actually. This is a good question. Very apt, if I do say so myself. What we do is my daughters and I, we once a week sit down and we write on a little slip of paper something we're grateful for. And then we have this glass mason jar and we put the piece of paper in there. And then randomly throughout the month, if we ever feel bad, we agree to sit down, open the jar, take the little pieces of paper out and think about all the things that we are grateful for. Because maybe in the moment we don't realize it. But when we see this out on these slips of paper, we realize the visual image allows us to know that there are just so many grateful things or things to be grateful for in life. I'm not going to do that. How does it help me right now? What, I'm going to break open a jar every time I feel bad? And then there's pre-work? You just gave me more work. That's the thing. You never ask managers for help because their solution is always more work. So I was asking the wrong people. Idiot. What am I thinking? But that's what's tough. I used to be so sure. I used to be like, no, being a student is harder. And it is, in terms of intensity. But now that it's been, oh my God, only 2.5 years, this guy's still fucking fresh. How's he already complaining? But it's different. I'll say that. It's an adjustment period that I'm having to go through right now because I don't get how this is sustainable. Every time I take time off, right, it's to go on vacation. But you guys have gone on vacation before, right? It's tiring. The joke is, but it's true. So is it even a joke? The joke is every time you go on vacation, you kind of need a vacation from the vacation. You need time to recover from taking time off. But you can't. You got to go back to work because you use your days off. So get going on that project. And remember, there's another one coming. So keep going. And I think things have really ramped up, like I told you last week, right? A lot of things have changed at the company I work for. And that just means that there's less people, but the same amount of work. So for each individual, there's more work. And I think, yeah, this is usually the time of the year where things are supposed to ramp down, right? You're supposed to kind of, even if you don't take time off, there's kind of these few weeks where it's a little more relaxed. But because of the recent changes, it's been tough. It feels like in this time that you're supposed to ramp down, actually things have intensified. That's the word. And so there's something very weird happening. It's kind of like when you pull an all-nighter. It's like your body knows that, hey, we're supposed to be resting right now. What the fuck is going on? You realize this is going to hurt later, right? You need to give yourself this time. But right now, when I'm supposed to give myself this time to rest, I'm actually like working harder than I basically worked all year. How the fuck does that make sense? And so maybe, perhaps, the people in 1951 didn't consider that the corporation I work for is going to go through massive layoffs and then I'd have more work. When they wrote that hit, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Because like me and many of my peers have agreed on, it's not. So what the fuck? This song is just taunting me every time I hear it. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Is it? Is it? Really? What are you basing that off of, motherfucker? These people, they wrote this song in what, 1951? They're probably all dead now, but I'm still like, fuck you guys. Also, New Year's is on a Wednesday this year. It's funny, whenever these holidays are on a day that's close to a weekend, companies like to chip in, right? Like next year, Christmas is on a Thursday, and I already know, apparently, we get that Thursday and Friday off, making it a 4-day weekend. But now it's funny. Christmas is on a Wednesday. New Year's is on a Wednesday. And so we just get that day off. And I was like, what the fuck? If you guys next year are willing to give us just an extra day off, what's another one gonna do, huh? No one even works during those weeks, right? So what's the harm? Just call it. Just call it. Also, what's kind of weird about, I thought about this. I was talking to someone earlier today, and this fucked me up once I realized it. What's so weird about a Wednesday New Year's? My friend asked me this. They're like, wait, so you have to work the next day? The second? I'm like, yeah. Isn't that weird? The second. Like next year, I think our first day of work in the new year will be January 5th. I'm like, that's a good amount of buffer, right? This year to go back, or next year, I guess, to go back to work on January 2nd is crazy. And that made me realize, wait a minute. The first half of that week is 2024. The second half of that week is 2025. What are we doing? We're going to, that week is split into 2 different years. We're going to have worked over a year in 1 week. And it's going to feel like that. I know it's going to feel like that. This is just every one of your parents' friends talking. Just complaining about adult things. I was at a birthday party the other day. I was talking to, yes, adults. And it was funny. There was a point when we were all talking about what's the best method to get rid of stains. And we're all, good people, so we were self-aware about the conversation. We all pointed out, like, see, this is what happens when you grow up, right? Talk about getting out stains at a birthday party. I remember, right? I went to a team lunch 2 years ago. And everyone was talking about what's the best fertilizer to use. And I'm like, is this it? Like I said, is this it? But no, there's so many things to be grateful for in adult life, but sometimes it gets difficult. I think what makes being an adult, right, more difficult in terms of stress is that it's chronic. When you're a student, it's acute, right? It's really intense, and it's just for a limited amount of time. But when you're an adult, unless you kind of figure things out, the shit's going to hurt slowly over time. And you've heard that thing, right? It's basically my teapot example of holding teapots. But simply put, right, there's that story of that professor. He says, student, come up here. Hold this glass of water. Not bad, right? They're like, no, I could do this. He's like, right. But if you were to stand there actually, for the next 10 minutes, we're going to check back in with you. And he keeps teaching and then comes back to the student. Student right now, oh, shaking their arm, their whole hand, right? They're basically sweating. They could drink the glass of water. It's kind of teasing them in that way. And the professor goes, how you feeling now? He's like, this fucking sucks. He's like, yeah. Because what was so doable for a short amount of time is not sustainable in the long term. You need to find a way to empty that cup or do something with that cup, because over time it will kill you. And that's what I don't get. Every adult I talk to, right, for the most part, the US doesn't have a very high unemployment rate. So every adult I talk to, for all intents and purposes, is working. How are they dealing with it mentally? I don't understand. But you find new things, right? I've talked about this in the past. You have to make your own holidays, right? Create your own events in the week and the month. Give yourself things to look forward to. Because if you don't, right, there's some months where there's like a giant dry spell. Like if you're in the US, right, there's July 4th. But then after July 4th, there's basically no holiday for the next 2 months, I think until Labor Day, right? So during that time, you have to set aside some time for yourself. You got to break it up. Or else you're going to be going down this long road carrying a teapot, and you're going to want to throw that shit on someone or pour it on yourself. And then at least you get to go to the hospital for third-degree burns. But you would rather prefer that because it means that you don't have to hold the weight of the teapot anymore. And isn't that just fucked? I think the reason maybe this podcast episode went this way is because I don't know if you've been able to tell. Probably not. I don't know. I think I've been doing a job of masking it. But I have a crazy headache right now and a very, very severe sore throat. And my whole body feels weak. And I've felt this way for about 3 days here. I don't know if it's the stress that's been happening in real life and, at work. And then also this coming week is my birthday. So that's always a stressful time. And you might be like, what the fuck are you talking about, Gauruv? Birthdays are awesome. And that's my problem. I was just talking to my mom about this earlier today. And I was like explaining all this. And I said, oh yeah, it's also my birthday week. So I'm like, that is kind of difficult. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, I feel like for the past handful of years, my birthday week's always been tough, I feel like mentally for me to deal with because there's such high expectations. I think when I was growing up, right, every year for my birthday, I'd basically invite my core group of friends and we would go bowling, come over to my place, get Little Caesars pizza, eat cake, right, a marble cake with that frosting on top, right, one of those big sheet cakes, and then it always had custard filling. And we eat that cake, maybe with some ice cream, and then play video games all night and have a sleepover, and then maybe even do a Nerf battle, right? That's what we do every single year. Strikes, Little Caesars, cake, NBA 2K, and a Nerf battle. And it was locked in. I knew exactly what I was going to be doing that year, and I knew I'd be doing it with that group of guys. And so that took care of the birthday thing. But now, when I went to college, and I've been an adult, I guess they call it, it's different. I don't have that thing that like, oh yeah, I'll just do that and that takes care of it. And you don't see the same amount of people, right? Every day like you would maybe a middle school, high school friend group. So then people reach out. And it's that. It's the people reaching out. Now this isn't to say I don't want anyone reaching out. I would like that. But it's stressful. I don't think I've ever talked about this, but 3 years ago, in September 2021, I started going to therapy. And I did therapy for a year. I went from September 2021 to September 2022. And this is one of the things I worked through there, which is that I get really stressed out during my birthday because whenever someone reaches out, it feels like, oh fuck, I have to respond to them. And it feels like, I don't deserve this. And then the big problem, the big reason I feel stressed out is because this week everyone looks in on it and they're like, oh, this is the thing. This is your birthday. You should be so happy. And I'm not. Like, yes, I'm happy, but it always feels like there's this unattainable expectation of me. And I'll never meet it. Again, like I said, it's unattainable. Everyone's going to ask, what are you doing for your birthday? Are you happy? ooh, birthday, what'd you do? What'd you get? And it's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want it to just be another day, but I don't want it to be a whole thing either. So I guess I'll just never be happy, huh? But no. The way my therapist told me to deal with it is you already know that that's going to be how it is that day, right? That people will reach out, and it's a nice thing. It's nice that people care enough to think about you on your birthday. So just go in with the understanding that people will text you, and then the next day, once the day is over, just thank them and be appreciative that people did that. And that's kind of the mentality I've had, right? The past 3, 4 years. But still, it doesn't get any more easily to deal with going into it. And again, this might just be the Sunday scaries and just me feeling like shit talking. So maybe I'm not able to deal with these things as well as I usually do. But probably me turning 26 has to do with it not feeling like the holidays either. I remember a few years ago, a friend of mine gave me a very, very thoughtful gift. And she said, after she gave it to me, a few weeks later, she was like, oh, I thought you were going to cry once you saw that gift. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And she was like, no, it's okay. I thought that was going to get you. And it was a very thoughtful gift, and I did appreciate it very much, but that also goes in with the whole birthday thing. That's also why I'm bad at accepting gifts. It's like basically the same thing. I'm not good at accepting gifts. I'm not good at accepting happy birthdays. Because it's this idea that people are like, oh yes, you're going to love this. And it's like, no, but what if I don't? That's why I don't like gifts. Because I'm like, you have this expectation and I'm not going to meet it. What an awful episode. But it's your fault, really, for having expectations of what it should be, right? I imagine this episode going much differently than it did, but this happened, didn't it? Anyways, I know for the past few weeks, right? Been begging for comments. But now, I know you're probably gonna, because you're nice people, you're probably gonna say happy birthday. And it's like, I don't even want that said. So what do I even say here? I should just stop this episode before it gets worse. You know, the thing is, this is why you shouldn't record when you're sick, because you don't have a good filter. So then you just say things. Well, it's almost Christmas, so I hope in the next week, it starts to begin to look a lot like Christmas. Okay. Sorry about this, but happy birthday, right? To all those who celebrate. So basically, like, I'm just saying anyone's birthday this week. Present company excluded. I said I should stop this, and I should. So I'm going to do exactly that. Next week will be better because it'll be Christmas. That's what it is. All right. Sorry about this. We'll sync. We'll follow back up next week. We'll circle back on this. Sounds good. Okay. And we'll talk to you next week. Okay. Bye.